It was about a year ago today. I was at the U.S. Open for West Coast Swing over Thanksgiving weekend, and I was having a cup of coffee with a friend of mine, Joel Hale, and he recommended to me a book that he was saying had been really instrumental in his both his learning and his teaching, because he teaches gymnastics. And when he recommended this book to me, it occurred to me that about 2 years ago he had recommended the same book. And so through this conversation, I decided to give it a try. And it is called The Inner Game of Tennis. And it introduces some new concepts. It's like 30 years old, and I kind of was a little nervous when I opened it because I was thinking to myself, how could this book have much relevance when there's just so much new information in anything that we do, and or to anything that we do. There's just so much more available to us to learn things quicker. And I decided to pick up the book, and the first thing that really jumped out is this concept that the author introduces called Self-1 and Self-2. And in any athletic endeavor, Self-1 is this coach, basically, that talks to the athlete, or the part of the self that's supposed to execute a movement. So for me in dancing, I might before a Jack and Jill say, all right, Sturge, whatever happens today, keep your head and eyes up, head and eyes up, head and eyes up. And then Self-2 is supposed to execute that. Now, for me, and this is what the author pointed out in the book, Self-1 and Self-2 did not have a very good relationship. And as Galway points out, that for some of us, if we could actually treat the coach and the recipient of the coaching as separate entities, actually as separate people, and if somebody were to walk by and hear the way that Self-1 talks to Self-2, for many of us, it's an abusive relationship. And for me, it was absolutely the case. Because when I'd come off the floor, I'd say, Sturge, you fucking idiot. You had one fucking job. Keep your head and eyes up, and you couldn't even do that. And I'd go into this self-deprecating, didn't matter if I won the Jack and Jill or if I didn't. I couldn't stick to that one thing I had told myself. And I get so mad at myself for my inability to execute. And this book made me aware of the negativity that I was bringing upon myself. And so I decided that I was going to try to just be a little nicer to myself and have a better relationship. And I needed a model for this relationship. And the relationship that just jumped out at me constantly was the friendship that I have with my best friend, Brad Whelan. Now, I understand that probably 50 of you guys watching this video and another 10,000 around the world all think that Brad Whelan's your best friend. But you're wrong. He's fucking my best friend. I'm kidding. I'm just one of you probably that feels like this because Brad's amazing. But what was unique about our relationship is we had this iron sharpens iron thing. And it was always out of love. We just developed so much rapport, so much love and understanding for each other that even when correction was necessary, even when guidance was necessary from one to the other, it just came out in a way that I wanted in myself. Yes, Brad is awesome. Thanks, Laura. And this was moderately successful for me. I started to make some changes. I started to treat myself a little bit better, be a little bit nicer to myself. But I didn't have a real breakthrough until I was driving a big truck that I was borrowing one night. And I was on this 3-lane highway. And I remember making a lane change. And when I was done with the lane change, I realized that I had done something unsafe, and I don't remember what it was. But out of my mouth was something like, Sturge, you fucking idiot, pay attention to where you're going. What's wrong with you? And the next 6 words that came out of my mouth, they changed everything. I didn't plan it, but instinctively I said, don't talk to me like that. And then I had this moment of silence where I kind of laughed quietly. And then that voice, that asshole who's always on my shit, who's always telling me I'm not doing it right, who's always telling me it's not good enough, honestly, in that moment, that dude just went away. For some reason, when I identified myself as the guy with the bad behavior that needs to change, I had a really hard time making any changes. But when I thought of myself as the abused, as this kid that had been pushed down by this something that was just trying to make him weaker and weaker, and I'm just down in this ball as this blubbering idiot, somehow I could make this fist and say, I might get my ass kicked, but I'm not going to do it laying down. And I made a stand for myself, guys. And it was so powerful and so unplanned. And I'm just going to leave you with this thought. Tony Robbins has this thing. I watch a lot of his stuff because he's so inspirational. He's got this thing. If you want to see your life change, you raise your standards. And I want to suggest to you that probably the most important way that you can raise your standards, and the most important area, is the way that you talk to yourself. When you start talking to yourself with respect, when you demand that you talk to yourself with respect, and that there's no place for just random negativity, guys, your life changes. At least mine did. I love you, and I hope you guys have a great Saturday.